And now, as I was saying, jumped ahead of myself a little bit. Our speaker today, Doug Metzger, he's with the city of Orlando, and he's a planner. He's a member of the Society, American International Society of Planners. Is that right? Planning, close. American Institute of Certified Planners. Okay, but he's got 30 years of experience with and planning, and he's done a lot of the projects that we enjoy here in this city already. He was involved in the planning in North Lake Park, Lake Nona, the West Orange Trail, which I personally love. I'm a biker and I like riding bikes on the West Orange Trail. Did a great job on that. And Cypress Grove Park, the University of Central Florida College of Medicine, a lot of things. So without taking up too much of his time, I'm going to ask Doug to come up right now. And please welcome Doug Metzger.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Again, Doug Metzger. I'm a chief planner for the city of Orlando. I work in our planning division. I manage our community planning studio, which is our urban design studio. So we care about how it looks. We also manage the Downtown Historic Preservation Board and the Downtown Appearance Review Board. But our studio does work all over the city. If you see new construction, my studio has touched it in one form or another, whether it's downtown or in Southeast Orlando. What I'm going to talk to you today about is Project DTO 2.0, which is the next plan or the action plan for downtown Orlando. And really this is a plan that's going to be a generational plan. You can go to the next slide. This builds off of Project DTO, which we did back in 2014, 2015, 6,100 participants. We had 9 task force. It came out with recommendations for improving bicycle and pedestrian amenities, increasing parks and open space, recruiting major corporate anchors and highways jobs, expanding neighborhood associations and housing options, and encouraging architecture that creates a signature skyline in our downtown. The previous plan, the original DTO plan, was the plan that brought us the venues, the new Amway Center, the new Performing Arts Center. Wonderful plans. DTO, the original DTO 1.0 that we're talking about here, really got talking about the lifestyle in downtown Orlando and how the CRA can improve the lifestyle in downtown Orlando. DTO 2.0 is really the action plan for implementing a lot of that. So what it involves is a lot of infrastructure and a lot of space. Next slide, please. We have a very specific study area. It's pretty much Colonial on the north end. We're down to Gore Street on the south, I-4 on the west, and Roslyn on the east, which is generally what we refer to as the Central Business District. So that's the primary study area. We took in influences from outside that area, but that's the area we're primarily looking at. 8/10 of a mile, 509 acres, a 30-minute walk north and south and a 10-minute walk east and west. Next one. The plan breaks into basically 4 pieces that we're looking at. We're looking at our streets. We're looking at our civic spaces. And then the districts that actually are activated in downtown Orlando. You can go to the next. We started with doing data collection. We collected 25,000 data points, everything from street lights to trash cans, crosswalks, curb space, how the curb space are being used, where the driveway cuts were, where the trees were, all of that. And it's part of the initial analysis. Next slide. And then kind of came into what we call the vision audit, what we were trying to look for when we were looking at trying to strengthen downtown Orlando's economic competitiveness in international and national marketplaces, enhance its livability and safety, and help become a welcoming urban center, intuitively integrate health and wellness into everything that we're doing, as well as incorporating sustainability and a long-term vision into everything that we're doing. Perfect. So downtown is the heart of the city and the region, and to be the heart and to be the center of the region, we have to thrive. So what is a thriving downtown? A thriving downtown acts as a neighborhood for the whole city. We're gonna go through these really quick. Is welcoming and relevant to everyone. This is the farmer's market over at Lake Eola Park. Has locals in mind and is good for visitors because they are sustained by local Visitors want an authentic experience, so they come to Orlando. We want them here to have an authentic experience. Downtown is a hub for arts and culture. Next. It's a regional magnet economically, socially, and politically. And it's a place where people want to live and have a variety of quality housing choices for a broad range of people. It is also a place where businesses can thrive, from large global corporations to small local businesses. And we do really love our locals in downtown Orlando. And it's reflective of its distinctive history and place. This is the High Line in New York City. And again, those are kind of, we have our history. We hope to take advantage of some of our history as we move forward. Downtowns also have a thriving social infrastructure that helps elevate civic life and does those things that we want our social institutions to do, as well as have a vibrant street life both day and night. I think that's the last one of this quick one. Oh, no. And they have beloved civic spaces that are networked and well planned. Bryant Park, New York City. And connections to surrounding districts and are stronger because of those connections. So we do have the Central Business District connects both to Paramore, connects both to the Thornton Park area, connects south to Soto, connects north to College Park. So again, we want to maintain strong connections so people can get in, people can get out, that they have plenty to do downtown, that's safe, it's fun, and unexpected experiences. Offers an array of evening leisure and entertainment options. So not just big venue things, but also small venue things and friendly family activities. I think one of the things we're lacking these days is we've lost some of the family friendliness downtown. And I think we'll work towards that. Downtowns are nurtured by district management organizations focused squarely on small businesses, arts, culture, and placemaking. And then is inclusive and transparent in ways for citizens to participate in their evolution. That I think is finally the last one of this one. Yes. So for downtown Orlando's long-term success, we must prioritize our future as a thriving downtown, a vibrant, walkable, economically viable cultural destination for Orlandoans. And that's the background that we're starting from. You go to the next slide. How do we measure up? And I'm not going to read through all 15 of those things because they kind of get covered in the next series of slides, but there were a bunch of parameters that we looked at, everything from the downtown street network. We have good bones, but what we do lack is a civic superstructure, for example. We don't have a connected civic system. So as we started to look through everything, we came up with our 5 planning principles. Downtown should be a place for all people. We should be inclusive. Should be personified by a vital street system and transit network, which is going to get interesting. Should be exceptional every day. And that is our goal. That's what we strive for. Downtown should be a neighborhood of diverse districts and corridors and should be a cultural hub for the region. So we're going to jump kind of right into those. A place for all people. I mean, we all understand inclusivity, making sure everyone's accounted for. Everybody counts or nobody counts. So again, downtown needs to support the full range of people and residents who both work and live in the area. You know, and it needs to stay safe for those people so that they want to come out, they want to enjoy those spaces. As we talk about what leads to this safe place, again, what makes it comfortable for people, we're sheltered from the weather, we have shade, we have nice buildings, but from a pedestrian standpoint, we have what we call the 20/20 rule. What you really see is about 20 feet up and 20 feet out, and that's your experience. So again, we want to make sure that that area is the strength, and that's what we refer to as the public realm in a lot of our street ones. We analyzed our structure, our active edges, meaning edges that streets that had active uses on them, and streets that were safe or comfortable. Interesting, green is good, red is bad. You can see a lot of red on here. We have areas of downtown that need a lot of help. But we do have areas that are performing well. This is the Robinson over on Pine Street. And then here's just right around the corner, Church Street in front of the Grand Bohemian. One of the things that we're looking at as part of this, and I'll bring up in the transportation section, is taking out a lot of the dedicated downtown limo lanes on the Orange Line in downtown. One of the other things we looked at was shade. We have about 30% shade coverage here. Our goal is to double that over the next 15 years to get to 60%. So again, here's a shady city, Mexico City, and then also lighting, we're not lit very well. We have about 14% light coverage. Again, the goal is to get to 60. That's both digital lighting. It's not just street lighting. It also has to do with our pedestrian areas, our plaza areas, our alleys, for example. Next slide. And again, just examples of what well-lit cities look like. Next slide. One of the big things that we're looking at right now as part of this project is our streetscapes. Many of our streetscapes are at the end of their life cycle. If you walk out the front door, you'll notice the red and gray hex pavers that Bob Snow installed back in the 70s are turning to powder. We've had issues with all of our streetscapes downtown because the fiber folks came through and they jack and board underneath everything, and they did a horrible job of restoration. So the other part of what we deal with is we have a very complicated set of downtown streetscape design guidelines. So part of Project DTO, we're going to simplify them. Now you can go to the next slide. And then this is how they're supposed to lay out. Next slide. And then these are the 5 typical types, treatment 1 through treatment 5, which is very urban. They're complex streetscapes. They're expensive to build. They require multiple pours, and they have long-term maintenance costs. These pavers get moved around. They have to get replaced. Someone comes in and disturbs the sidewalk because they're putting in fiber, they're putting in a new manhole, whatever that is. They become a large liability. So we are looking at simplifying, and in the end, redoing all of the downtown streetscapes as part of DTO 2.0. Next slide. We've had the streetscape design guidelines now really since the 80s, and we've only managed to implement them over 33% of the streets in the study area. It's because we've taken a policy or a practice before is we did some big projects in the 80s where we did the historic district streets. And then as development came along, we did streetscape development by development. So we get piecemeal and inconsistencies. Next slide. So downtown needs a universal sidewalk system, and that's what we're working on. A more simplified, easier to navigate, easier to maintain, much better long-term maintenance costs for the sidewalks. So you're going to see more concrete sidewalks, less pavers, less specialty paving in the public realm. But again, we think that makes it easier for us over time. It also accents the architecture that's next to it, as opposed to making the sidewalk the focus. One of the other things we're looking at when it comes to our streets is stormwater. We have some great lakes downtown: Concord, Lake Eola, Lake Lucerne. They're also downtown stormwater ponds. So as we look forward, as it rains downtown, the stormwater is going there. We all remember Ian and all the flooding we had. One of the things that we're going to look at, and go to the next slide, is getting to what we call low impact drainage design, creating wetland areas. For example, as we look at the new master plan for Lake Eola Park, where the stormwater inlets come in, we're going to create new artificial wetlands that will additionally filter that water before it gets into the lake. We're looking at the same thing for Lake Lucerne as part of that as well. So again, new drainage solutions to improve the water quality that we're putting in our lakes downtown. Next. Downtown should be personified by vital street and transit network. We'll go through this one pretty quick, I think, because I want to get to one slide in particular. We have a one-way system downtown. One of the things that we're looking at is, street life and what is a good street. But go to the next slide. My transportation engineers have something called a classification system that grades streets A through F. They base on congestion. I have a guide that grades streets A through F, and I base it on aesthetics and livability. So what we end up having a lot of times, if you go to the next slide, is this conflict where the picture on the left is Concord Avenue by the courthouse parking garage, which for a traffic engineer is an A. Easy flow of traffic, no obstructions, no congestions. For an urban designer like me, it's an F. There's nothing that activates the street. There's no active uses. There's no place to enjoy the street. There's no on-street dining. I have the Sentinel site across the street, which unfortunately is being used for a construction parking lot right now. And we've met with the developer as part of this. And he's got some great plans. I'm hoping he implements them someday. So one of the biggest things that's coming out of DTO 2.0 is taking some of our one-way streets and making them two-way streets. And that's because a two-way street network is more efficient. It's more practical. From a retail standpoint, in which we lack, it provides better storefront visibility because you're getting two-directional storefront visibility. It cuts down on your circulations around downtown. Go back one more for a second. Where, if I have to go around the block to get to someplace rather than just making a left turn, I'm creating a longer trip. I'm making 3 more left turns. I'm creating that car traffic even more. Whereas if you look at the one on the right, I can get directly to my destination on a two-way network. Go ahead and go to the next one. And these are just more one-way streets, two-way streets. Drivers on one-way streets tend to drive faster. They tend to only pay attention to the direction that they're going. They don't pay attention to what's happening on the sides. So that's a safety issue for pedestrians and bicyclists and those types of things. Two-way streets make you look both ways. You have to look both ways at the intersection. They tend to reduce signalization, but they make pedestrian safety even higher. Keep going. And again, multiple ways to get one place in a two-way system. Our streets have different uses, different intentions. So movement, that's Garland. We're moving Garland Ewing. We're moving people in and out of downtown next to I-4. Access is Orange Avenue. That's providing access to all the buildings and the businesses along Orange Avenue. Because there are no curb cuts, there's no parking really along Orange Avenue. Magnolia, we envision becoming our sense of place, and I'll explain more about that in a second. And then Roslyn being both movement and access. And go ahead and go to the next slide. And then the east-west streets, again, they all have kind of a use or a purpose that we'll all try to take advantage of and design to. Next slide. Part of the street network is the bike trail network. So we're going to see some things. If you've seen the cycle track in the North Quarter, part of DTO 2.0 extends it from where it ends north of Colonial down to Robinson. Robinson will have a cycle track on it when it's rebuilt by DOT that'll go from I-4 all the way out to Orlando Executive Airport. We're getting ready to do another cycle track downtown that'll go from Washington, weave its way over to Summerlin. That'll connect to the Anderson Street Trail. It'll connect you to the Orlando Urban Trail. So you'll be able to be on a bike network that has a 7 or 8 mile loop that you'll be able to ride continuously without having to ride on street. Next one. Limo, we're looking at limo. Because it's free, it's not kind of serving the purposes that it used to be. And here's what we discovered early on. So the Performing Arts Center and the arena for Orlando used to be Bob Carr in the old Amway Arena on the north side of downtown. That's what limo was geared to reach. That's where all the transportation systems were geared to reach. Here we are 20 years later, the Performing Arts and the Amway Center are now on the south side of downtown. So we've completely flipped the focus and where the congestion wants to go to. So again, as we look at rerouting limo, as we look at rerouting some of the transit things, how do we improve that? Go to the next slide. Let's see. I don't think I have any of the maps in here. One of the things we're probably looking at doing is we're going to extend what we call the grapefruit line. That's the one that runs along Central. It'll go from Lake Eola all the way out to Lake Lorna Dune to the Citrus Bowl. That's the orange line. Ridden a lot by the folks in Paramore, allows them to get to the Publix over here in downtown Orlando. The Lime Line, which is the one that's up in Creative Village, will probably start going from Creative Village to Lake Eola Park, taking people to destination areas rather than just riding around in a loop. And the big one for the Orange Line is what we're trying to do is get it from hospital to hospital on Orange Avenue, just going up and down Orange Avenue. So that's kind of the goals for limo. We have some things we have to work out. We're going to lose some dedicated bus lanes, but on the Central Line, we'll probably create some more. There's federal funding attached to that, so we got to make sure we maintain a balance. Keep going. Downtown should be exceptional every day. We can flip through this one. It's animating life, and it's creating destinations, and it's getting people to those places that really make it work. So when we talk exceptional art, exceptional concerts, festivals, restaurants, Swans, I think we're starting to see more and more of that. We have a world-class Performing Arts Center. We've got a great Amway Arena. We got a soccer stadium as a bonus. What we need to focus on is that livable open space that people want to use every day, the smaller parks, the smaller civic spaces. Art Square up at Robinson and Orange Avenue, which is a new park space that's going in. We're trying desperately to get hold of the little piece of property here on Orange and Pine, but we have someone who doesn't want to sell it. We're working on the under eye again right now too. So again, trying to create those places for people to create that exceptional everyday life. Go ahead. This is just kind of a heat map that shows today where our civic spaces are. We've got Lake Eola Park, the future under eye, Church Street, which becomes one of those areas, the Art Plaza and Luminary Green. Next slide. The idea as we expand is to create a more connected network. So all of a sudden the Sentinel properties develop, we need a significant open space there. And actually the developer is right in line with us. He's programmed one of those into his plan. We have Art Square going in. We're getting ready to do some renovation work on Heritage Square at the History Center as well. Lake Eola Park has a brand new master plan that John and Chris here are getting ready to implement. It'll be a lot of fun. They're very excited for it. We're also looking at Lake Lucerne because we really want to figure out a way. The pedestrian connectivity at Lake Lucerne is horrible. We can't get people from south of 408 comfortably into downtown Orlando. So that's one of the focuses that we're looking at, also as a stormwater pond next. So again, a civic network, and then how we connect that civic network and some of the other areas that are around it. Keep coming. Downtown should be a neighborhood of diverse districts and corridors. We have different flavors as we move up and down through the corridor. This is just a quick study, and you can go to the next one. The green ones, the darker the green, the more viable, the higher quality of the blocks. These shaded areas, go back one. These shaded areas are blocks of, or areas in downtown where we really don't see any new growth happening. They've either pretty much been built out. It's the Churches corridor over here. We don't see them redeveloping very much. You know, the frontage along Lake Eola Park, those are stagnant areas that we're not going to get a lot of new growth in. But if you keep going, these are blocks that are susceptible to change. And then there's a composite map that comes up next one. So you can start to see the green areas are the good areas for future development. The hatched areas are also areas that are susceptible to change. So there's still plenty of redevelopment and growth to happen in the downtown business district is really what this is starting to say. We need to plan for it. We need to build for it. Next slide. Then we start talking about districts. The downtown district, which we're really seeing is the historic district, kind of central down to City Hall. Central up to Robinson is the central district. Flip, go to the next slide. And then the Midtown district, kind of anchored by the Sentinel site. And then the Bridge district, both north, which is kind of the I-4 Garland corridor. Along there, there's a lot of prime redevelopment sites through that entire corridor. Next slide. Again, and it's walkable. We're in an area that's walkable. A 5-minute walk is our standard. We can do that in this area. Keep going. Again, just kind of highlighting the districts. Next. Also being able to take advantage of our locals, our local businesses, making sure that we're doing what we need to help them, whether it's giving them grant support. We have grant programs for small business support, as well as facade improvement grants, building stabilization grants, those types of things for the property owners and for the businesses to help them be successful in downtown. Next. The major corridors that we are looking at are 3 out of these 4 as part of DTO 2.0. Church Street and Magnolia, we see them as the elbow and completely redoing those streets. This streetscape's old, it's tired, it's done. I'm tired of getting complaints from women who can't walk in high heel shoes on pavers. Magnolia Avenue, the desire is to take out the dedicated limo lanes. All of a sudden turn that to a 2-way street. We pick up some additional real estate for streetscape, but it's also the ability to create a festival street type area over by the History Center. Church Street becomes a festival street. They become kind of the anchors of the entertainment corridor from the Amway up to the courthouse. Orange Avenue becomes our corporate main street. Magnolia Avenue in a 2-way condition kind of becomes that hometown main street. It's much more at a scale for small retail development. That's what we're excited about. And that's what we think we can provide a catalyst for change by taking the limo out and activating that street. Orange Avenue will stay Orange Avenue. It just goes 2 ways. Go ahead. Downtown should be the cultural hub. Next. We've got the Performing Arts Center. We've got the library. We have big pieces. We have big anchors. We need smaller pieces to make that fabric, to make that weave finer of the cultural things that are happening in downtown Orlando, whether it's pop-up performance spaces, better programming of some of our other open space areas, street programming. Next. Nurture and incubate people-powered businesses. Again, you know, we're best when our locals are there. One of the things that has had downtown struggling for retail and restaurants is our main streets outside of downtown are so successful that those residents want to go there. Edgewater Drive, Ivanhoe, Mills 50, you know, look at those places on the weekend. the people are there. We're trying to do that down here. Downtown has a Main Street district. It's called City District. I happen to be on. We're getting ready to do some new things, some new placemaking things as well. Next. Events for the region, and we all know that Lake Eola Park holds our hearts for all the big events in downtown. And then we're almost to the end. So again, our 5 planning principles as we went through, as we talked about in the beginning. Next slide. We must prioritize our future to be a thriving downtown, which means we do have to go through some change. And next. What I really just gave you was the presentation for phase 2. That was the analysis and the strategy development for DTO 2.0. We finished phase 3 weeks ago, and we don't have a synthesized presentation for that. So I'd love to come back and give you phase 3 because it starts to talk about concepts to give us ideas for what Church Street becomes, what Magnolia becomes. I think we all saw that the Performing Arts Center has some plans for Senate Plaza out in front of their building that look kind of interesting. I have some issues with it from my own personal standpoint because I can see it from the window of my office, but you know, we'll work on that. So again, as we move forward, kind of working together with all those, phase 3 really does start to look at space. It has the new streetscapes and new streetscape designs in it. Nothing's finalized yet. It's all still conceptual, but that's kind of what we've done to get to this process. And I think that's actually my last slide. Yep. So it's kind of the big picture. It's a lot of graphics that I know are hard to see because we're dealing with the fine grained detail, but I'm here to answer any questions. Oh, where'd all this come from? Fire one.
Okay, here we go.
All right, this is from one of our Zoom viewers. I'll make it quick. How can downtown be the heart of the region and be family friendly without accommodation for families? Over the last 10 years or more, nothing but small rental apartments have been built and continue to be built downtown, which are not suitable for families with children. Most of downtown population is young professionals who move out into the suburbs when they decide to raise a family, giving downtown a very transient character. Only the number of transference seem to match the continuous increase in bigger and bigger apartment buildings. Is the city doing anything to reverse this trend?
If you've been paying any attention, we have a whole new set of downtown guidelines that we are developing right now. We used to classify everything under a category called eating and drinking establishment. You were a restaurant if 51% of your sales were food, and you were a bar if 51% of your sales were alcohol. And that was the only way we would classify everything. So what we've done now is we've created new definitions for restaurant, bar, nightclub, new guidelines for those. We have a new security system, a new permit for what we call an after hours permit. So to stay open after midnight, you have to meet a certain set of security criteria, from being able to scan driver's licenses, to having wand metal detectors, to having security lighting and security cameras available, to paying for extra security after midnight. So the intent is to calm that crowd down. What are we trying to do? We are trying to do some new things in downtown to get the families back. We're at the mercy of the developers for the number of units they build, 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s, but the 3s and 4s are out there. But don't forget, downtown is surrounded by Lake Eola Heights, Lake Cherokee District, you know, the Paramore neighborhood, Holden Heights, College Park. We're surrounded by residential. We want more family residential downtown. We're trying to program more. What we have is a situation now where it's kind of that 6 to 10 time frame where we really want to focus our energy as a city. We have Amway and the bars for the kind of the after hour stuff. It's really reinforcing that cultural window from 6 to 10 that gets the family. We'll be doing kind of more things to program that.
Question. I've lived here my whole adult life, and Orlando's a great city. We don't want to see happen to us what's happened to Washington, Seattle, or
Yeah.
to the San Francisco.
Right.
My 2 questions are, one, when I would fly to Chicago, I could take a train downtown and go anywhere on the L. When I go to Washington, I'd go into Reagan, I could go anywhere on the train. How is it that Brightline can come from Miami to Fort Lauderdale to Palm Beach to here, and we can't ride a train on this track right here, and a businessman or a family visit Orlando without paying mere $70 from the airport?
It's a little bit outside my scope of expertise. There have been programs to do that. Obviously, Brightline's now going to extend down to Tampa. There is a Sunrail extension that goes from the Sand Lake Road that will take you over to the airport. But realize what we got here, we didn't get light rail, we got commuter rail. Light rail are faster, speedier trains on much quicker timeframes, 10, 15 minutes between trains. We're now talking 30, 40 minutes between trains, regional system. Again, to get the connection to the airport will be great. Someone's going to build it. I think they've got the corridor figured out now. It's in the planning. So.
Thank you for an excellent presentation. What's the plan going forward with the scooters and the bikes, the electronic things? The reason I ask, I understand exactly where you're coming from. The reason I ask is we live downtown.
Yeah.
And we just see them on their sides constantly everywhere, blocking the sidewalks. And it just makes me wonder if we try to make downtown more handicap accessible and make people who have disabilities feel more comfortable being able to traverse it. I've seen more times than I can count where if someone were in a wheelchair, or a walker or whatever, they would have to jump the curb, go into the street with the traffic to get around those things. So as a private business, I can't put my office on the sidewalk, so I just wonder why those companies are able to use all the sidewalks as their free commercial space.
So we have providers and users. The providers are required to pick up the scooters and put them in specific locations. And we actually created a parking area for them in some areas where they actually put them out. The problem is the users. It's the users, even though they're supposed to park them appropriately when they're done, they just drop them where they are. Believe me, I have a coworker who has plates in his elbow because he tripped over a scooter walking down the sidewalk one day to lunch. So they drive me crazy because they're all over the place. I live right over in College Park, and every now and then I walk out in the morning and there's a scooter in front of my house. I'm like, must be the end of his run. So it's a user provider group. It's a contractual thing with the city as well. And I think that contract's coming up or getting redone too. So we should kind of be seeing a change in the way it's managed in the near future.
I have two questions. One is, what's happening at the Ace Cafe site? Because that's where we met 6 weeks ago. And then
It's
second
closed.
is, what's going on underneath the I-4?
Okay. I put a lot of work into Ace Cafe, and believe me, it hurt when it closed. At one time, there was an approval back in the early 2000s before the 2008 recession that we all remember, for a 30-story mixed-use building there. Maybe there'll be another restaurant. I have not heard anything since they've closed. It has the ability, it's zoned AC3AT, which is our most intense zoning district. They can go to 400 units an acre, or if you understand FAR, they can go to a 9 or 12 FAR there. It's a great site. It's a big site. It is a prime development site, so we'll have to see what happens. I'd hate to lose the Lou building because there was time when I used to go shop in there when I was a younger man. So nothing certain yet. We haven't seen anything. It has the ability to go both ways. The under eye I'm working on, I've been working on it now for 9 years. We have a design team in place. The concept has changed over time. I don't know if you've kind of seen what's happening in the paper. Before I-4 was rebuilt, that whole area was parking. There were 900 parking spaces there. What we've come to the conclusion is that we need a little bit more surface parking downtown to serve maybe people coming to Church Street, but also to help with our rideshare situation, to give us a central rideshare hub. So for the under eye, what we're going to do is we're going to put in 500 parking spaces, and then the rest will be park plaza space. It'll end up being about 60% park and 40% parking. It will probably be, has anyone been to Luminary Green to see the light show that happens at Luminary Green at night? Go to Luminary Green over here in Creative Village from 8 p.m. until I think it's 10:30. They run a light show in their park. It has a large set of Orlando letters. They have been digitally mapped. They project on the letters. All sorts of fun things happen on the letters. Outlines, fireworks. They fill up with oranges, and the oranges go away. They have a thunderstorm inside of them. At the same time, all the lights in the park are integrated with that show that's going on. There's also a soundtrack that's going on, and there's a nice restaurant over there called the Monroe, so make dinner out of it. we're going to take that concept and expand it over into the under eye. So you'll see a large light show. So can you imagine if you're walking to Amway and that 300-foot long wall along Church Street that's holding up the bridges for I-4 is a 300-foot wide video display that's going on, that's giving you animation, that's doing that. We have light shows that are going on. We have sculptures, we have art. We also have large plaza areas so we can do farmers markets or art festivals or fan zones in the park area. So again, the intent is that we are doing park and parking, but the intent also is that parking area as SED hopefully finally develops on the other side of I-4, as the redevelopment occurs along Garland, that those parking spaces can go away and we can get back to creating even more park space there. So we're a conceptual design right now, year and a half from construction.
I know this is not your purview and not your problem, but how aware is both the city and the county of the crisis we've got with the homeless here? It's getting worse and worse and worse. How are we going to have some place nice if we have panhandlers at every corner because they have no place to live?
It's a difficult situation. I think we all understand it. We do what we can. We have a new set of ambassadors downtown that are being trained for homeless intervention. So the idea is that they help the homeless. They find out if they have needs. Our is the programs where they can get help, where they can get housing assistance, where they can get interim housing. We can't do that with everybody. The other issue we have is it's called a public right-of-way. If they're camped out in the public right-of-way, we can't do a whole lot about that. It's open to the public. So what ends up happening is what we see, and especially, Commissioner Hill's really having a problem with it in Paramore, is we break up one area and they just move to another area. So, it's a game of wampum. So the goal is to create more and more programs to get them assistance if they're willing for assistance. What we're also getting is a lot of transitional housing that's getting developed. A lot of the old hotels along West Colonial are now getting converted to what is capital A affordable housing. The old Ambassador Hotel over here on Colonial is now going to be an affordable housing complex. There's two or three more hotels further out on West Colonial that are getting converted. The Orlando Union Rescue Mission took over an old hotel when they moved out of downtown, converted it. So again, it's creating the housing to house some of these homeless people and creating affordable housing. But it's again getting government, the social community to all work together, and it's difficult. We've even hired in economic development. We now have a housing coordinator to help with the homeless situation, and we even have our own housing department.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you was, by the way, great presentation, really appreciate it. I think the city's doing a good job trying to figure out what to do for the future, and I like the vision. But what is the timeline? I mean, we're all passionate about the city of Orlando. What is the vision for the timeline? Are we talking decades? Are we talking years? What are we talking? And I know there's a funding mechanism for that.
There's a fun, well, I mean, this is a big enough project that the discussion has been about bonding it and doing it all at once. But what you're talking about to two-way Orange Avenue, Roslyn Avenue, Magnolia Avenue, you're talking about reworking 80 intersections. That takes time. Signalization or stop signs determining what they're going to do. The issue we're going to have, and my friend from OUC will tell me, as soon as we take the asphalt off the street, OUC is going to want to replace the water main. My water reclamation folks are going to want to replace the sewer lines. We're going to want to redo all the connections to the building. I'm looking at it as a 10 to 20-year project, really, to do everything, but it'll be done in phases. I mean, for example, if we were to redo the streetscape and rip out everything on Magnolia Avenue, we've got 3 years of design before we could get to construction, just to get through engineering and design. So
Doug, it looked like from the map that all of the streets are going to stay in play. And it occurs to me that I was in Denver about 5 years ago, and they have a walking street called the 16th Street Mall.
yeah,
It has just a few cross streets, but there's no traffic on the street. I was there on a Friday and all the shops were open and tents were set up on the street. It was a cultural affair and absolutely great fun. And it occurs to me that Orange Avenue would be ripe for something like that, to give you a downtown where small shops, where independent people could be, where it could be family friendly. I'm wondering, in your planning, Did that come up? And if so, why did you reject that option?
You just described the plan for Magnolia Avenue. That's exactly the plan for Magnolia Avenue. To create curbless plaza areas, especially around the History Center and the library, where we can have larger events there. To take out the limo lane so we can expand it, because that's a smaller, more pedestrian scale area. And because we are going to reconnect Magnolia Avenue to Livingston, but because it doesn't go all the way through like Roslyn and Orange, you won't get the traffic volumes on it. And it'll be easier to close it because we'll be able to leave Magnolia and Roslyn. So that is the vision for Magnolia Avenue, that it becomes that kind of walkable Main Street, wider streetscapes, going down to just 2 lanes. So we'll pick up an additional, I think it's 15 or 16 feet. Oh, yeah. There's no north-south traffic. Yeah. 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 We used to have a bus that rode up and down it. They took the bus out. But when last time I was in Denver, I was on the bus on that one, but that was 20 years ago.
Doug, I'm going to take advantage of asking the last question. How serious is the discussion about adding 2, I believe, residential buildings on Incentive Plaza in front of the Performing Arts Center?
The original plan for Senate Plaza, if you're looking at the front of the Performing Arts Center, it divides into 3 parcels. The parcel on the left was originally supposed to be a hotel. The parcel on the right was going to be a CNL office building with a pedestrian bridge that went to a parking garage that was on the south side of Anderson. There's a dirt parking lot there. We call it the Dickinson lot. That was the original plan for the Performing Arts Center. And the intent was the tax dollars from the office building and the hotel were going to fund operations for the Performing Arts Center. Well, we discovered we have this great green space in the middle of downtown Orlando. So the city has made a policy decision that, no, we're not going to do the office building and the hotel there. Front of Senate's, there is the ability to do a residential tower on the back side of the Performing Arts Center, on the Roslyn Street side of the Performing Arts Center. Yeah, and I've seen the plans for it. They kind of showed them to me. So it's a big deal. It's an expensive one because they'd have to completely span their loading dock area with some very massive beams that, will be $1 million a piece. So then what we've seen lately is the Performing Arts Center has gone to the tourist board to ask for money to redo their front area to really make it kind of an amphitheater type entertainment space as well, kind of a more advanced version of the front yard. I think it's an interesting concept. I think the design needs some refining because they turned their back to Orange Avenue to do that. Whereas if they were to open up from the Performing Arts Center to Orange Avenue, all of a sudden they could encompass building to building from the Performing Arts Center to City Hall as an entertainment performance space. And we could easily close Orange Avenue between South and Anderson and have a giant space in there if we wanted to. So we'll see. That stuff's coming.
So those are not serious plans at this point.
They're serious enough that they asked the Tourist Development Board for $800 million.
For the two
For the front-
buildings?
No, for the front, for what they want to do in front of the Performing
No,
Arts Center.
But the 2 buildings, that's not,
No, the 2 buildings are out of the picture right now. The 2 buildings in front of the Performing Arts Center are out of the picture. The potential for a residential tower on the east side of the Performing Arts Center on the back side is still a potential.
Doug, thanks for being here today. Thanks for a great
Thanks,
presentation.
everybody.
We want to have you back.
Thanks very much. We also have a small gift for you here. Thank you. All right, thank you, Doug. That was a great presentation.